What are your thoughts on Ben Johnson taking the Bears job?
Well, I guess there's not much shock that Ben Johnson was going to leave Detroit, obviously. Lou, we knew that he was the #1 candidate in this hiring cycle for a head coaching position. He was even last year and then turned down the Commanders ultimately. I think there is a little bit of surprise maybe in Detroit that Chicago was his landing spot. A lot of people expected perhaps that he would be going to the Raiders or the Jags.
Why? Why were they surprised about the Bears? They didn't think the Bears would ever step up in this manner? No, honestly, I mean, the Bears have been known as an organization that usually doesn't make a bold move like this.
Yeah, well, you know what? I do think it is a bold move, and I think he is a great candidate. I believed all along that this would be a great landing spot for Ben Johnson because of all of the weapons that he has on offense. The only question that remains is, can Darnell Wright throw a pass? I mean, that's about everything we need to know about the Chicago Bears offense and Ben Johnson. But I do think that people thought maybe with what's going on with Ryan Poles and the early rumors and stories behind the scenes that maybe Ben Johnson wanted someone else to be the general manager. There were a lot of questions if he would ultimately go with the Bears.
There's been some question as to whether, it's one thing to be a successful offensive coordinator. It's another thing to be a successful head coach. We just lived through the Matt Eberflus experience, who was a solid defensive coordinator, defensive play caller at least in this town, but when it came to head coaching, he didn't do the job well. Can Ben Johnson run the whole operation?
Well, I do think that really remains to be seen. It's a $64,000 question or whatever he's going to be paid, which I'm assuming is going to be a lot more than that everybody wants to know. What I have seen Dan Campbell ascend to as a head coach since he came in here through all of the media obligations. I mean, that alone is pretty overwhelming, and also game planning and leading not just the offense and just his unit, but the entire team, and dealing with all that comes with, examples of J-Mo during the season when they had some trouble with him, with, anything that goes on off of the field. I mean, that all falls on the head coach ultimately. And I think Ben will be challenged and tested early. He is a little bit younger at 38, and this obviously is a very quick ascension for him. I mean, remember, he was just the offensive quality control coach for Matt Patricia in 2019 when he got here. And so it's been an interesting, very quick ascension for him. He will have to, kind of learn the hard way and learn on the job. And I think that is tough in a media market, maybe the size of Chicago. In Detroit here, there's really a really gentle kind of love affair with the Lions and what they have become because they were so bad. But here in Chicago, or there in Chicago, you'll see, I mean, obviously this is a franchise that has won a lot previously. And so the recent downtick is something that's gotten those fans angry. So it's not just going to be like, yay, he got us back up to where we expect to be. But I mean, it is absolutely expected that this team has to turn around and win quickly under Ben Johnson.
Can he command the room? And I'm specifically talking about the guys on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, I think that he will be able to do that. And like I said, he'll be learning on the job, and he's got to make sure that he stands his ground and that he surrounds himself with some really strong pieces. Because ultimately, whoever his defensive coordinator that comes in is also going to be a guy that he's going to lean on. And it remains to be seen as well if he's going to start plucking some pieces from the Lions staff. There's been a lot of conversation over just the last 48 hours in Allen Park that there have been a lot of closed door meetings and a lot of workings behind the scenes, guys trying to figure out who they can take and pluck from this staff. Hank Fraley is a name. He is the Lions offensive line coach that comes up quite often as someone who may go to Chicago with Ben, potentially to be his offensive coordinator, which would be a huge, step up for him. But at the same time, there's a lot of guys in this room in Detroit that don't want Hank Fraley to leave. Certainly they knew Ben was a foregone conclusion. And it'll be interesting to see how it all goes. But as far as your question about leader of men, I do think that he has that capability. He's just going to really have to understand how to temper his emotions and ride the waves without getting, elevated or letting it really get to him emotionally or mentally.
Not only did they get their #1 target, they also hurt someone within the division in the NFC North.
Yeah.
How badly will this hurt the Lions?
Well, I think from a morale standpoint, it hurts in that they had such an early playoff exit, right? I mean, that's the thing that this team in this city right now is really trying to grapple with. And knowing Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes at the top of the organization, those guys are really capable of making sure that they get this thing sustained, turned around. They're going to reload, reboot, and I trust those guys to be able to do it.
Jen, as always, great to talk to you. We'll see you on First and North. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Lou.